All right, let's dive into one of the trickiest puzzles in the English language, gerunds versus infinitives. You know, when you're not sure if you should use an ing word or a to word, well, if that's ever stumped you, you are in exactly the right place.
So let's start with the central mystery right here. Why on earth can you say I love cooking and I love to cook? They look different, but, they mean the exact same thing. This is usually where the confusion begins, but hang in there with me because sometimes choosing between these two can change the meaning of your sentence completely.
Okay, check this out. This slide shows just how important this is. On the left, she stopped eating pizza. Simple enough, right? She quit. It's not in her diet anymore. But look at the right. She stopped to eat pizza. That means she was doing something else, maybe driving, maybe walking, and she paused that activity so that she could eat some pizza. See? One tiny change, a totally different story. Getting this right is absolutely crucial.
So to really solve this puzzle, we've got to understand the pieces. We're going to break down each part, the ing form and the to form, and see exactly what they do and where they're supposed to go. Let's kick things off with that ing form, which has a special name, the gerund.
So let's meet our first key player, the gerund. Now, I know it sounds like some super complicated grammar term, but it's actually one of the most flexible and useful tools you have in English. The best way to think about it, it's a verb in disguise.
And here's the main idea. It's pretty simple. A gerund is just a verb that we stick an ing on the end of, so it can act like a noun. We use it to name an activity. And just to make this super clear for you, through this whole explainer, you're going to see all the gerunds highlighted in green. And here is a perfect example of a gerund doing its main job. In the sentence, cooking is a lot of fun. The word cooking isn't describing an action that's happening right now. No, it's the name of the activity. It's the subject of the sentence, just like soccer or music could be. It's basically a noun. So when do you use one? Well, there are 4 big situations. First, like we just saw, it can be the subject of a sentence. It also comes after certain verbs, like enjoy or avoid. You'd say, I enjoy swimming. You'd never say, I enjoy to swim. And here's the golden rule. If you remember one thing, remember this. If a verb comes after a preposition, words like for, in, or about, it has to be a gerund, every single time. And finally, you'll see it after a possessive, like his ordering. All right, so we've got the gerund figured out. Now let's bring in the other half of the team, the infinitive. And to help you keep things straight, we're going to highlight all the infinitives in blue.
The infinitive is probably the version you think of when you just picture a verb in your head. It's the most basic form, to plus the verb itself. To eat, to cook, to learn. It's clean, it's simple, and it has its own very specific jobs to do in a sentence.
Now, infinitives tend to follow a totally different group of verbs, like plan or decide. We'd say, we plan to go. They also pop up after adjectives, like it's easy to understand, and after nouns, like I have a decision to make. But my absolute favorite use is this last one, using an infinitive to explain the purpose of an action. It's the perfect way to answer the question, why? And here it is in action. Look how efficient this is. Someone asks, why did you stop eating fast food? The answer, to lose weight. That infinitive, to lose, directly states the goal, the reason, the purpose of the action. It's a fantastic little shortcut for explaining your motivation. Okay, so let's get into the part that really trips most people up. Some verbs can be followed by a gerund, some can be followed by an infinitive, and some can be followed by both. But don't worry, we are going to make this crystal clear with a really simple guide.
I would suggest you take a screenshot of this slide. Seriously, this is your ultimate cheat sheet, the biggest takeaway. You can see we've got 4 categories. First, verbs that only take a gerund, like enjoy. Then verbs that only take an infinitive, like decide. Then you've got the flexible ones, where you can use either and the meaning doesn't change at all, like love. And finally, the really tricky ones, the verbs where the meaning completely changes depending on what you choose.
Let's really zoom in on that last category for a second, because it is so important. If you say he remembered meeting her, you're saying he has a memory of a past event. He can picture it in his head. But if you say he remembered to meet her, you mean he didn't forget an appointment he had. The gerund looks back into the past at a memory. The infinitive looks forward to a task. That's a huge difference. Phew, okay. I know that was a lot of information, but we have covered all the essentials. So let's just boil it all down into a simple, actionable checklist you can use anytime you feel stuck. Here it is, your 4-step decision guide. First, just ask yourself, is this verb acting like the name of an activity?
If the answer's yes, use a gerund. Second, are you trying to explain the purpose or the why behind an action? That's a job for the infinitive. Third, this is that unbreakable rule. Is your verb coming right after a preposition? It has to be a gerund. And finally, if you're still not sure, just look at the verb that comes before your blank space and check that verb cheat sheet.
And there you have it. The puzzle isn't so puzzling anymore, is it? You have the tools now, the rules, the cheat sheet, and that 4-step guide. The case is officially closed. So the only question left for you is, how are you going to use this new knowledge to make your English clearer and more precise, starting right now?